Hello, and welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today we have a large painting to work on, 11 by 14. This is 12 by 16 hot press pad, 100% cotton, New York Central, and I marked it down to the 11 by 14. With this, working from a photograph, and I'll put that photo up on the Patreon. And as per usual, you're always welcome to follow along. You are welcome to sign your own name. And you are welcome to sell anything you do whenever you follow along with any of my videos. I want you guys to have fun, and I want you to have money for art supplies. And it's all part of the learning process anyway. That being said, if you like this channel and you like this content, please like, subscribe, and please consider supporting on the Patreon. And thank you to everybody that supports through the Patreon. I truly appreciate it. Okay, just getting it nice and coated. The larger size pad, the 140-pound paper, will kind of buckle in a little bit right here, but this paper does mellow out. And I'm going to start off with some Prussian blue. All right. I'm just washing it in. And I think with this one, I'm going to mess around with the sky throughout the painting. Doing some titanium glazes and things like that. I like how it's sitting in that valley right there. So I'm going to push the pigment around. I think I want to get a little bit pink in the sky. But for the pink, I'm going to go with the Naples yellow, the Daniel Smith Naples yellow, which is a little on the red side. It may not show up like that on the camera. It's just like kind of a light little bit. I might even grab a little bit of alizarin crimson. It's been a while since I did a large watercolor painting. I've been doing so much experiments lately. Even experimenting with the acrylic and the egg tempera. So kind of felt the need to go back to the roots. Just bring that through there. Let's see, here's a alizarin crimson. The Daniel Smith alizarin crimson is like really strong. So there we go. I'm going to bring this up into the sky. I kind of want to do this just to kind of get some of the water out of the valleys and to just move things around. I could have used less water in the beginning. That's probably what would have been the better plan of action. Let's see. Let's grab, here's the Naples yellow, but the Winsor Newton one. I'll use that for the ground. So it's just blocking stuff in at the moment. The light's going to come from this direction, so I think I'm going to get a little bit of ultramarine up in the sky on the left side. Just so I have a transitional change from left to right. All right, I'm going to hit with the blow dryer real quick. All right, I'm very pleased with this start. It went pretty well. I'm going to switch to this shorter, smaller, natural white brush. This is by Golden Maple, excuse me. And I'm going to grab Rich Green Gold. I'm going to use that to map out the painting. I haven't done this in a while. Oh, I like kind of the dry brush. I did put out fresh Rich Green Gold from the tube, so it is still kind of like a liquid on my palette. Let's bring it to about here. I think that's going to be the first tree. The second tree I'm going to bring out here. I don't want it symmetrical on either side, so I'm going to bring this one to the edge. All right, so I'm just, like I said, mapping it out. I'm going to come in on top with other colors, and I might try my coloring layering a little differently in this video, but I'll point those out whenever I get to it. Because right now I'm just enjoying the way the color looks on the paper. So this tree I'm going to set a little bit further back compared to this foliage group. But it is going to connect. This tree comes up a little bit higher. Okay. Here's a big bright strip of light, sunlight. And I think I'm going to go with the Naples yellow for that. This is the Winsor Newton one. I just put out fresh that too. So we're going to come here and then we're going to see a little bit in the distance behind them. I go rich green gold for the grass. Just kind of start getting that in place. I wish I was able to buy that pigment powder and make my own. That'd be great. So I was just thinking I'll probably have to buy a new tube for the next few months. Not quite sure what I want to do right here. In the picture, it's the road, but I don't like putting the road in. We could put a path. I like putting the path. That's just my thing. I feel like it makes it more timeless than a road. Okay. All right. So it's all about kind of getting the idea in place. Sometimes I sketch beforehand. I just haven't been sketching lately. And the sketching beforehand would help lay everything out and figure out, you know, like in a sketchbook and seeing all the proportions of where we're going to move things around. But sometimes I just need to dive in and paint. I'm going to grab some gamboge. And I'm going to look for that sunlight because it's like a golden sunlight. Not much light hitting this guy, but along the top. Nice way to kind of show. Just hopefully I could keep that through to the end. Yeah, this is a strong, rich, vibrant color. Sometimes I feel like I go overboard with it, especially if I'm using it in skies. But for me, it's just one of those things that really just kind of pops. And sometimes I have trouble getting things popping like that. And I'm probably going to switch to undersea green in a moment. And that's another thing I put out some fresh of. So undersea green is a mixture of a few different pigments. I think it's ultramarine. There's like a orange and a yellow in there, I think, as well. Or maybe even a red. It's just a darker muted green. Let's put that in the foreground. Get some more of that for the trees. I don't like leaving the white through the tree. It just starts looking really awkward. So we're going to try to minimize those. It's just, for me, it just doesn't work having a lot of speckled areas through the trees. Okay, that's definitely straight from the tube, but that will work. Okay. Might leave some bigger openings. Okay. Working on grounding it a little bit. And we're going to wind up having some shadows that are cast. I'm going to use the green for that for right now. So the shadow, the light coming from left to right. And we even have a little ditch running alongside the road, which will be a path here. And we could look for that as well. And there's even a nice cut line right here along the edge of this field. So here, 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 bring it to that point, bring it to that point, bring it to that. I bring it on the horizon line. There. There. Okay. Just a little linear perspective, just kind of keeping that in mind. We're going to wind up texturing this quite a bit later on. And color-wise for here, I think I'm going to do like a purple. So let me get some ultramarine blue. And you know what? I'll use alizarin crimson. Let's see. I'd be too rich of a purple, but we'll go over it later on. I'm going to pause for a quick dry off. All right, I grabbed the Chinese brush that I cut the end of and modified to a kind of sharper point. And I'm going to use Van Dyke Brown and put in the tree trunks. There's going to be one in here. It's going to be obscured with everything around it, but it'll be part of the buildup. Let's get... So definitely oak trees that we're working with here. This guy kind of brings us in and we see a little opening right here. It's going to come down. going to give this some weight. It's a very thick branch. Down here in Louisiana, they have to put these metal posts underneath a lot of the oak trees, underneath the different branches to keep them up. Okay. It's going to come up. Coming through here. This is all in a darker area, so I'm gonna get that Van Dyke brown in there right now. Put that in shadow. One thing I've been trying to do, and I probably mentioned this in previous videos, is kind of like the lower half of the tree. I want my shadows to be darker, and then in the upper part of the tree I like to put my shadows lighter. So I'm going to try to keep the Van Dyke brown to the lower half or the lower quarter. And I'm pushing it in this fashion. Oh, well, I just splattered all the way from the canvas, all the way from the palette onto here, but I'll fix that later on. But I'm trying to get texture in there just so it's not smooth washes, and over time it just gives more of an illusion of texture. And there's some tree trunks in here. They're more obscured. And this isn't all the tree trunks. This is just kind of the start of tree trunks and branches. Oh, I don't like that. Something in here. Okay. I'm going to switch to undersea green with this brush. And I'm looking more for dark areas. I like the random spots of that gamboge. Get a little bit more water in there. Okay, it comes down here. So we might be able to leave openings like this. I think the basis of my exploration in this route is the texture as well as the gradations of glow around an object. And whenever you're putting in a texture, you want it to be random and not repeated. I had that 2 line happen right there, so I was just going up and switching that around. All right. I think I say all right a lot whenever I'm painting or going from one thing to the next. I guess that's my transition word. I think I might do it as a teacher in the classroom. Just using the leftover little bit that's wet just to texturize and get ideas of grass. But I want to switch over to the rich green gold. I'm going to pause real quick. Okay. All right, so I'm going to move this around the painting. We still have the white of the paper essentially behind it, which gives us some good accent glows. And I guess the best way to describe this is that I'm still not really trying to paint the individual things just yet. I'm still kind of just moving around, placing the color, kind of just back and forth. I even see some reds in here, and I'll probably grab some terracotta and put that in, and I think that'll work really well. And another thing is I try to work the whole painting at the same time, meaning that I'm doing the tree right here, but I'm bringing stuff down and working on the grass as well. Just so that the same level energy is being done throughout the whole painting. I'm going to put distant trees in later on along that horizon. Let's go back to the rich green gold. Then I'll grab some undersea green. In a moment. Okay, undersea green. We haven't really painted too heavily, so we can't really scratch in and put any texture. And by scratching in, I mean removing the wet layer that we're putting in so we can see the color underneath it. Oh. And we'll have to adjust the shape here later on. Undersea green. A little bit of terracotta. That warmed it up a lot, obviously, but let's see what we wind up doing. All right, I'm gonna do a pause for a quick dry off because I know my hands are gonna smear that. I want to grab some buff titanium, or not buff titanium, just the titanium, the white gouache. I want to start looking around the edges for a little bit of an atmospheric effect. And using cleaner water just to kind of bring that up so we don't have any hard edges from what I just did. All right. Okay, I'm going to go into the Naples yellow. Here's Da Vinci's brand, Naples yellow, a little bit more orange. I'm going to grab some gray titanium. I'm just doing quick washes in areas just because I did the wash in that sky. So just kind of big color changes. I'm going to grab yellow ochre and pass it over. Some yellow ochre. All right, time for another dry off. Okay, gonna grab the undersea green and then mix in some greenish raw umber. And I'll create our distant trees with this. There we go. We can use that as an opportunity to cover over some of those splatters. And you can even see them back here. All right, I mentioned the terracotta in the trees. Okay, I don't want it to be too opaque, so I'm just going to water it down. I think Da Vinci brand new gold might work here too. So let me switch and grab some of that. There we go. A little bit more translucent than the terracotta. A little bit more yellow than the terracotta. This terracotta is like an orangey earth red. I think it might be the same as the Herculean pigment, which is one of the pigments that I had bought from Italy. Can even get a little bit of this up in here. All right, going back to the gamboge that we used in the very beginning. I think we might even benefit from Hansa Yellow Medium. A little bump up here just so we can kind of break up the roundness of it. Undersea green. This is still wet, so I'm applying it wet and wet, and it's giving a nice diffusion while still maintaining some of the textures. I'm going to change the orientation of the brush because everything looks very horizontal right now. So let's bring it up like this. All right. I've been neglecting this side of the tree, and I mentioned earlier how I try to work the whole painting at once, and I feel like, that would really leave us feeling at a loss for this area, so really got to start getting ideas in place. shadow over. And use some Van Dyke Brown for tree trunks and for some darks. And I'm going to grab that and get a little bit going on. It might be fun to mix in the terracotta into that. Let's see. So, I guess essentially like a burnt umber. And like I said, I just want this dark on the lower portion of the trees. You know, where less light is going to get to because of all the foliage up above and around it. We could actually make those marks that I was talking about earlier. Now that we have enough paint down below it. Forming a little bit of that edge right there. I don't want to come all the way towards us, I think. Let's experiment with just kind of bringing it to this point here. And I want to grab some perylene green. Just put it at the bottom. There we go. If we can keep that edge, and then we keep an edge here. Big change, I'm going to grab some brown ochre. And this is nickel titanate yellow. It has like an opacity to it. I think it is not really safe health-wise, you know, like to touch it and ingest it and stuff like that. But hopefully you can see how it's given a little bit, you know, more, pack it a little bit more of a punch. Maybe catch a little bit light here. Undersea green, I'm going to put a little, come back here. Maybe so we can get a little undulation there. And let's go with some green and then red. Or let's get the new gold. Closer to us. Just a warm color, just to kind of get the, what is this? A little area is resisting. Just to help it come forward. Then undersea green. It's too wet to really make the white lines in it. That's kind of me battling the straight from the tube paint. All right, I'm going to pause the camera for a quick dry off. Okay, so I'm going to wind up stopping for the night in a few and pick it up tomorrow in a separate video. But I wanted to mess around in the sky first before then. This is buff titanium. And, if you're following along and you don't have the colors that I have, that's fine. I'm just kind of exploring this palette, and I put a lot of colors out to see what works for me, what I want to reach for, etc. And, you might not have those. You might not want to explore those colors. So it's just, a matter of working with what you have. Because you can grab the white, and that'd be some white right there. Okay. I'm going to grab a little bit of ultramarine blue. I want to see how it would look if I try to feed it in right here. There we go. So, kind of have to chase the water around. Chase the water around just to prevent the hard edges in the sky and just make it look more natural. You could even warm up the sky on this side. A little teeny bit of gamboge. Gambage. I wish I knew how to pronounce it. Okay. I'm going to dry it off. All right, so I'm going to stop this one here for the night, and then tomorrow we will pick back up with it. I hope you enjoyed, and I will be back soon with the part 2. You all take care, and talk to you all soon. Bye.